Another Karen canceled. Have you heard about this Karen thing? It's a term, it's a very nice name, at least it used to be, but the woke left uses it as a pejorative label for any white woman who dares to be assertive, who dares to defend herself, who dares not be intimidated. It's a very bad thing and a very bad trend. And if you're a Karen, as they see it, you could be canceled. You could lose everything over this. So something happened in New York City, very, very trivial, but the ramifications are actually very, very big. So I want to introduce you to the man who accused one person of being a Karen. This is Frederick Joseph. He is a writer. He's also very, very easily offended by anything. Anything seems to be racist in his book. The wind blowing is racist. We'll get more into his portfolio in just a little bit. Here's his big claim to fame, though, this book, The Black Friend, on Being a Better White Person by Frederick Joseph. Now, already, this is a problem in my book. I mean, could you imagine if I wrote a book, The White Friend, instructing how people could be better black people? That obviously would be ludicrous, and I find this book to be ludicrous. I also find his T-shirts to be deeply offensive. He just sits around and take a look. Slap your local racist. Sounds, I guess, in a way okay, but who determines who's racist? And who is he to slap anybody? This is a problem, okay? The woke left loves this stuff. So the target this weekend is a woman named Emma Sarley. Now, Emma was at the dog walk. I told you this was kind of trivial, walking her dog and got into an argument with Mr. Joseph about whose dog was barking. Now, according to Mr. Joseph, things got racial really fast. Here's the video that went viral that helped end her promising career, at least so far. Take a look.
In our hood? No.
I'm gonna invite everyone.
Stay in our hood? Stay in our hood. That's it. I'm sorry, what? Stay in our hood?
That's me?
Stay in our hood.
Leave the dog park to stay in our hood?
You just told us to leave the dog park and stay in our hood.
Oh my God, did you just say that to me?
Wow.
Oh, that's funny.
Wow, the Karenism, the white.
I'm sorry, you were right here, watch this entire thing. Did she just not stand here and tell us to stay in our hood?
She did.
You just told us to stay.
And it ends like that. Just a few seconds long. She said nothing racist. I had a hard time understanding her. The only people who were saying anything about hood was the man with the camera. I heard somebody else call her a Karen, but I heard nothing racist, okay? And there is nothing racist right there. So what happens next? Mr. Joseph breaks out his phone and he says, this white woman was threatening to call police and told us to stay in our hood. None of those things happened on the tape, by the way. I started recording and she tried to slap the phone out of my hand. By the way, you put a camera in my face and you're not a friend, I might do that. And I also might think about the middle finger. It's not a nice thing to do. She gives it to him. It happens a lot in New York, especially if you're driving. It's what we call no big deal. But he's not done by just complaining about a bad day he had at the dog park. He goes online trying to figure out who it is. Has anybody seen anybody like this? And then the tips start coming in. They find out where she works, and then it's game on. And who is she, by the way? She is, Emma Sarley, and she does have a lot going on. She has a job. She has a boyfriend. She has a dog. She has stuff in her life. And that makes her a target. She has things, and the mob wants to take those things away from her. So they track down her boss, or her boss's boss's boss. She works at a company called Bevy, and this is the boss. He is a guy named Derek Anderson, and I watched this unfold all weekend long. He says on Twitter that he's horrified by what happened. Let's see. Spoke with Fred Joseph about his and his fiance's horrific experience from last night, So sorry to them for what has happened. No one should treat people the way we witness. This is extremely troubling. I will update you shortly. All right. Next, he decides our company has zero tolerance for discriminatory behavior of any kind. Yesterday, an employee engaged in behavior contrary to our values and has been terminated. We apologize deeply to all involved. I personally hope some type of resolution can happen between the two parties beyond this, and I will help if I can. Well, that is a total cop-out. This guy, it took him about 15 minutes to come to this decision. It seems like he's afraid of the woke mob, right? I mean, what we saw in that videotape did not amount to racism. Who is the witness? He investigates. You know who the witness is? Some guy drinking a beer that he's never heard of, that you've never heard of, that I'd never heard of. What does he say?
I'm sorry, you were right here, watch this entire thing. Did she just not stand here and tell us to stay in our hood?
She did.
Just some guy standing there says, yeah, she did. I don't know that guy. I know the boss of this company doesn't know that guy, but that's enough for him. That's good enough for him. Look, we have to allow, maybe she was on probation, maybe she was kind of crazy, who knows? But this is no reason to terminate somebody. But this is right up his alley because he's one of those virtue signaling guys. Listen to this.
On May 25th, when George Floyd was killed, my co-founder, I was traveling. It's the day after my birthday, and I was traveling. We just said to ourselves, let's do what would be something big? What does meaningful change look like? And to us, 13 to 14% of the U.S. population is Black, and we just said, well, what if we got to 20% of the company? We just started working on it. I hit LinkedIn and hit Valence and other communities to go find great people and started just recruiting.
Great people of color instead of just great people. He wants to make 20%. Is that admirable? I actually think it's very sad in a way. It's very easy to go around counting faces, who's white, who's Black, but to actually develop talent, that takes work. That takes hard work, and most people don't want to do that. So that brings us back to the accuser, the original accuser, who likes to slap his local racist. He knows who's racist. He sees racism everywhere. He's on a United Airlines flight. This actually made news a couple of years ago. The woman next to him puts the feet up on the chair. The audacity of white privilege, he says. This woman next to me took her shoes off and placed both feet on the table. So I'm waiting for the flight staff to say something. Again, he calls it the audacity of white privilege. And he says they were so nice to that woman, and that never would have happened to a Black person. Look, he got an Airbnb upstate. It looked perfectly fine. But there were some trinkets around the Airbnb that he found somewhat offensive. There was a nude photograph of somebody. There was some ornaments that he kind of got creeped out by. All right, so he leaves. That's his right. But he says, even though he never met the owners, that the whole thing is racist. Take a look. Again, this guy made news with this. We left because we are Black. Black people have been through certain traumas, both historically and currently, that might generate less apprehension for white people. He can never lose. He can never not be a victim because he's Black, according to him. And this book that he wrote, I told you it's problematic. It would be certainly a problem if I wrote a book like this from my perspective. And it's a problem when he writes it. I have to go back to the video for a moment. Not in my hood, or go back to our hood, or whatever that was that he said. This is a big thing with him.
Stay in our hood?
That's me?
Stay in our hood.
Leave the dog park to stay in our
You
hood?
just told us to leave the dog park and stay in our hood.
So did she really say that? I don't know. It's not on the tape. Some guy with a beer says she did, but I do know this. Mr. Joseph is programmed to be very, very sensitive to the word hood. It's in his book like 50 times. He writes about how condescending it is when white people say hood. Many, many, many references to this. And I'm actually offended by the next statement. Let's go ahead and put that up. This is in his book. This white boy had never spoken to me or even met me. He simply assumed I was poor and lived in the hood because I was Black. I think he's carrying around a lot of baggage. And by the way, I can tell you, white people say hood too. It's not pejorative. It's said. It's told. It's you can react the worst possible way if you want to, and that's how he does. And even when I guess he had problems getting his next book published, that's racist too. New York Times gave a positive review of his book, but listen to this. The reception of The Black Friend has been warm but disheartening. Every single white editor said they couldn't figure out how to sell it, and it would probably be better someplace else. But the writing is electric. The writing is electric. Just ask them. All writers feel that way about the stuff they've written. People get turned down by editors all the time. It's part of the process. It's a part of being a writer. I thought, look, Mr. Joseph here is committed to having a ludicrous, silly, phony conversation about race to avoid having a serious, substantive one where we talk about what's actually really happening here. You know who used to have that conversation? He wasn't afraid. It's one of the reasons why Americans fell in love with the guy at first. Barack Obama, back in 2008.
Too many fathers are MIA. Too many fathers are AWOL. You and I know this is true everywhere, but nowhere is it more true than in the African-American community. We know the statistics that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime. They're 9 times more likely to drop out of school, 20 times more likely to end up in prison.
He was speaking a lot of truth there, but he was burned by the far left. They didn't like that. They didn't like that at all. Shut up. And he got the message. He barely went there for the next 8 years. And he doesn't go there today because the far left hates to hear that. Well, I want to hear more of that. May not be politically correct, but it could be helpful. If you're not politically correct, as this woman in New York found out, the cost can be very severe. Donald Trump warned us about that, and there's hope in all of this. His speech, a portion of it from last July 4th, when he was still president in 2020.
There is a new far-left fascism that demands absolute allegiance. If you do not speak its language, perform its rituals, recite its mantras, and follow its commandments, then you will be censored, banished, blacklisted, persecuted, and punished. It's not going to happen to us.
We can't let it happen to us. We can't let it happen to us. Those things could actually happen. People are going to point the finger at you. They'll call you a racist just because you want to talk about the truth. I think we got to keep speaking out. Can't be afraid. The moment someone mentions race, 75% of white people are going to run away. The left wants to own this conversation, and they want to shape it. They want to have it on their terms, and those terms are dishonest. I take inspiration from that moment. I miss the guy. I miss the guy. Sounds like he's coming back, though. In the meantime, we got to deal with Joe Biden. And the mainstream media won't do it. They haven't done it, but we will. Vet the guy.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
Joe Biden. Joe Biden. There are little gems from Joe Biden's career that should have been highlighted all last year and the year before, probably all the way back to when he was in the United States Senate. It certainly should have kept him from becoming vice president. I'm talking about the ridiculous stuff this guy said over the years that the mainstream media just said, nah, that's Joe being Joe. Well, here he is, a newly elected U.S. Senator, being an idiot.
As the youngest member of the Senate, the one, therefore, who may expect the longest career there, I wonder if you'd say to us, since it's clear that you're not corrupt and you got elected, why should people think that the system produces corrupt results when there you are?
Well, I'm not sure you should assume I'm not corrupt, but thank you for that, though.
Talk about cockiness. Talk about arrogance and hubris. Well, Joe, I don't assume you're not corrupt. I don't. I think that was a little bit of a signal, a Freudian slip, or something's going on there. What else happened all the way back in 1974?
The fortunate thing is I didn't have many larger contributors, and the only reason, see, I went to the big guys for the money. I was ready to prostitute myself in the manner in which I talk about it.
Wow, and you were willing, Joe? You were so willing? What's another word for prostitute? One piece of work, huh?
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.